Miller with Kale, who is our technical partner on the project.
Good morning, everyone.
Hi, Sarah. Together we'll be working on this project along with several people from our consulting firms. We'll introduce ourselves in a minute. What we're here to talk about today is the Triad Talent Alignment Strategy. This is a great project, a very important project, and I think a very timely project for the region. We're going to talk to you about why it's important and then walk you through the scope of work. We've given ourselves about 45 minutes today on the call with you. We're going to leave about 10 minutes for questions and answers. So when we reach that moment, I will unmute all of us and let you speak up, or certainly, type in a question in the chat box, at the end of the presentation or during our presentation. Again, hello everyone. We've got more joining us, so thank you for joining us. This is great to see. We're almost up to 50 attendees, so I appreciate your interest and your participation in this project. Before we go through the presentation, I do want to, let a few of our lead organizations on the ground give a few opening remarks. Cecilia, you want to jump in?
Sure. Well, good morning. I'm Cecilia Thompson, and I'm the Executive Director of Action Greensboro. And we are so thrilled that we have such a great crowd on the call today. Action Greensboro is one of many organizations that are investing financially in making this talent study happen. As many of you know, we are a consortium of 6 private foundations in Greensboro that pool resources together to work on quality of life. And we are particularly interested in, as we have been, in the continuum of early childhood education through graduating from college and getting a degree and a career post-graduation. And so that was really the motivation behind commissioning both Kale and Avalanche to come together. And when our preliminary conversations began, we really recognized that we can't do this by just way of Greensboro. It really is a regional effort in terms of attraction and retention and alignment of our talent strategy. And so we reached out along with the Chamber of Commerce here in Greensboro to many regional organizations that are also focused on this work. So we're very thrilled to have many partners. And through this process, there'll be 3 main managers on the local level here. And so that'll be myself, Candace Tucker, who is our Operations and Communications Manager, in addition to Penny Whiteheart at the Piedmont Triad Partnership. So if you see an email from us, we hope that you'll read it, and we really look forward to working with all of you through this process. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Cecilia. Stan, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Chris, and let me join Cecilia on behalf of PTP. And as many of you know, Penny Whiteheart and the PTP organization, we're working on several large economic development projects across the region to include mega sites, the Chatham mega site, Greensboro, Randolph, Moncure, and work at the airport mega site. And this work just is so, it's not only critical, it is the critical path, this talent alignment work. And as you get into these projects and ultimate prospects, the first question they ask is, aside from the fight, let's talk about talent. So it's just very, very critical to our future. So we know there are many, many workforce groups and programs across this region that are engaged and have been engaged in this work. And so our effort is simply to connect and strengthen the great work that's already underway. So Chris, I'll turn it back to you, and thank you for allowing me to join.
Great. Thank you both, Cecilia and Stan, for your opening remarks. We couldn't agree more that this is just a really important project. And fortunately, talent development and what we call talent alignment, it's very much a team sport. So we are thrilled that there are so many people on the call today and are really encouraging this project to be as inclusive as possible and collaborative as possible. So we look forward to engaging you going forward. Just a few more comments about the funders. We've also have Winston-Salem Business Inc. as a funder, the Greensboro Chamber of Commerce, Greensboro High Point, and Randolph County, and certainly appreciate everything that they're doing. As Cecilia mentioned, there are other funders through Action Greensboro that are part of this project. So thank you to everyone that's been involved so far. Let me share a little bit about Avalanche with you. We are a economic and workforce development strategist. We're based in Austin, Texas. We've been in business as Avalanche for over 10 years and have served over 100 communities. Myself and our president, Amy Holloway, have both been in the economic and workforce development business for over 20 years. We do a number of services, but what's been really interesting for us is to see how much workforce has become an integral part of economic development and a critical piece of the economic development strategies that we work on. And how that plays out really depends on the community. Again, we know it's a collaborative effort, but at the end of the day, we know we are here to generate and ensure that the workforce is available for the jobs that are being created and that you want to attract. So it's both a push and a pull relationship. We've also got experience in marketing and branding, and so we hope to help you think about how workforce can become a true marketing asset for you. We've worked across the country. You can see we've done a lot of work in Texas, but our lot of work in the Southeast, places like the Upstate Alliance. Just recently finished a plan for the Charlotte Regional Partnership and Charlotte Chamber. Charleston, South Carolina has been a big client of ours, and done a lot of work in Florida. So we know the Southeast very well. We've worked in big regions and small towns and urban and rural areas. We've got a lot of history in the Carolinas and know your region pretty well, and look forward to being back there soon. Okay, Sarah, let me let you introduce Kale.
Sure, thank you. And I just want to echo everyone's sentiments about how excited we are to start this project and how pleased we are to see such interest. So thank you for joining us this morning. So again, I'm Sarah Miller with Kale. I'm also actually joined by my colleague James Reddish as well as a part of the larger team for Kale on this project. But let me give you a little bit of background on us as an organization. So we are the Council for Adults in Experiential Learning. We're a national nonprofit. We've been around since the late 70s, so we're actually on our 42nd year of service. And overall, our mission is just to put meaningful credentials within reach for everyone in your community, and also to link that learning to the workplace. That's very critical to Kale as an organization, and specifically within the division from which James and I hail, our Workforce and Economic Development Division. We have a couple of different areas of service. We're kind of born out of the higher education system and helping institutions to better serve adult and non-traditional learners. So we have a rich history in working on that spectrum of helping non-traditional workers gain access to credentials and be able to assess their prior learning for college level credit. We've done a lot of work within the corporate market with labor unions and business and industry, helping them to be better advocates for lifelong learning and access to college and credentials. And then the Workforce and Economic Development Division is our newest division, coming in at about 10 years old at this point. We were kind of born out of the Department of Labor WIRED initiative, the Workforce Innovation for Regional Economic Development. And if I'm not mistaken, Chris, that was when our partnership first blossomed. So Kale has been lucky enough to partner with Avalanche on a number of different projects, specifically around these very comprehensive workforce alignment strategies. So as you can see, if we can, I don't know if I have the controls, but if we can flip to the next slide, just kind of a swath of the business that we've done over the past handful of years. A number of these have been done in partnership with Avalanche and providing this kind of comprehensive quantitative and qualitative approach to really understanding your workforce needs and your workforce and talent development system. So we're very thrilled to be working with you all together here today. So I'll turn it back to you, Chris.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. So let's talk about the project. First, I want to share a few comments with you. I don't think any of this is a surprise or new, but I do want to underscore what it means. Today, access to talent is without a doubt the top factor in a corporate expansion project or relocation project. It's been at the top of every site selection survey list of priorities for several years now, but it's important to point out that it wasn't always like that. And, often workforce development was left to, the workforce boards of the educators and wasn't really linked to economic development as well as it should have been. This has been changing over the last 5-10 years, and we've seen great progress and great collaborations across the country. What we mean by talent alignment is really taking talent development a step further and making sure that the workforce that you are creating through your education, certifications, degree programs really meets the needs of the companies that you have in your community. And that's something that we're going to do both through data and also through conversations with employers. I'll say, of the 48 people now on the call, we've got a great mix of educators, workforce boards. I saw a lot of employers, saw a lot of economic developers. So again, this is a fantastic sign that, we can all come together and really solve this challenge of creating the talent for the next, 10, 20 years that you're going to need. What's also happening more recently is a significant gap in skills in the workforce. We see it all over the country, whether you are a high growth community or a slow growth community or a negative growth community, you're still having trouble filling the demand for workforce from your employers. And it's putting, a lot of things at risk. Certainly retaining employers is critical, but also being able to attract new employers and give them the confidence that they can not only find the workers, but also bring, and attract workers from other parts of the country that are critical, like IT and technology. But really we're seeing talent shortages across, most parts of the economy right now, most industries. A lot of that, of course, has to do with the fact that the unemployment rate is at a 16-year low. So it's an issue that we will address more in our research and conversations. I'll say too that there's a real conversation happening right now about the impact of technology on workforce and the skills that the workforce needs, but also what might happen with robotics and automation and even this thing called artificial intelligence and machine learning. As we move further and further into a connected world and a world that is run through the internet and run through computers, the skills that are needed to keep up with that are truly changing, by the year. And certainly we see as IT gets embedded in the healthcare industry, it becomes more and more important for workers to be comfortable with digital technologies. So we'll explore some of these global drivers and changes that are occurring. It's also important to recognize that we're seeing a big shift in demographics, that as the baby boomers retire, we're going to see more and more people leaving the workforce, or more people at the extreme end of the age range for workforce. We'll see a lot of demand for healthcare services, which pulls workers from other industries. And so, certainly this demographic bubble that is pushing forward is going to drive a lot of workforce challenges. I think this comment about lower labor force participation rates is still valid, even though our unemployment rate is low. It seems that we lost a lot of people from the labor force, after the recession, and just haven't gotten them back, or haven't really engaged them to be a part of the labor force, haven't been able to get them back into the education system to get the skills and the training they need. And so, addressing those challenges will be important too, to really tap into that, untapped labor force that you have right now that can be part of your growth. I just commented on healthcare, and certainly, we've seen the rise of millennials in urban areas and wanting to be in urban areas, and what that means to really make sure that we're creating jobs that can serve that young demographic. So there's a lot going on today, and we're going to be pulling some of this information or research for you, and certainly look forward to having conversations going forward. What we've found that works really well in talent alignment strategies is an honest evaluation of strengths and challenges. We want this process to be not only inclusive, but honest. So, and we think that this evaluation is based on good data. So Avalanche has been very data-driven in our work, and we're going to bring a lot of statistics and a lot of trend data to show you exactly what your workforce looks like today and what's happening in the larger workforce world. So strong partnerships between educators and employers is critical. Those of you who are in the Department of Labor world know that this has been a progression that really engaging employers is paramount, if not primary, and making sure that we have this connection, and not only a connection, but a continuous feedback loop between the employers and the educators and workforce developers. We think strategy should be bold and very driven in action. We've also built plans that are very marketing driven and very compelling. So we want everyone in the community to know what this plan is about and what the future of the Piedmont Triad will look like. And we, at the end of the day, want people to invest in themselves and take this information and use it to improve their organization, or to improve their hiring practices, or to improve the actual students that are getting education. So this is ultimately about creating action that leads to better long-term investments. And finally, with authentic and compelling stories, it's not enough just to put a plan out there. We want to talk about what the triad is going to look like, and how it will attract others to the region and retain a workforce. So that's where this talent retention and recruitment component, which I'll talk about in a minute, will come into play. So I'm going to talk about the process. Phase one is a workforce analysis. It's this baseline data analysis where we're going to answer the questions of, what does your workforce look like today? We're also going to look at some forecasts and begin to estimate what the workforce demand will look like over the next 5 and 10 years. Not just net jobs, but also where the job openings are going to be. Phase two will be a supply and demand analysis. This is where we ask the question, are students pursuing degrees that are in demand and match the needs of your industries, particularly the target industries that you seek, to be a part of you for many years to come, like healthcare, IT, logistics. So does the region have the programs that are needed, and are these programs as current and relevant and supportive as they need to be for the employers and the region to meet its growth goals? And phase three is the talent alignment strategy. Here we're going to say what needs to be done. How can the education system, meet current workforce challenges, and how can providers, boost and create programs that target industries' value and also get recognition. This will also include a talent recruitment and an attraction campaign. So that's just a very high level of what we're going to do. I'm going to walk through a couple of these first few phases and hand it over to Sarah, and then we'll close with some final thoughts and Q&A. I want to make a strong point that this talent alignment strategy is intended for a very broad audience. These are just a few of the constituents. We want to be not only involved, but engaged and active at the end of this project. So education administrators, workforce development advisors, career counselors, students, I'd put parents on that list as well, and certainly the workers or adults that are seeking employment. We're going to generate a lot of great content and knowledge out of this process, and we'll be sharing the right content with the right audience, going forward. So again, we want everyone engaged and look forward to really, helping a large swath of people. This process will also involve a lot of stakeholder input. We're going to be on the ground, 3 to 4 times, and we'll have steering committee meetings and a lot of interviews with employers and educators and workforce developers, and focus groups will be very industry oriented. So we'll have, healthcare focus groups, IT focus groups, and logistics, and get everybody together to talk about what the challenges are. We're big believers in stakeholder inputs. The more the better when it comes to these projects, and the more engagement, in our view, means the more likely this and the better implementation will occur. So stakeholders, and all of you are stakeholders, we'll be asking you to provide information on the condition and needs of the current workforce, the needs and priorities of local employers, the quality and accessibility of education in the region. We'll be talking about the need for new program development or program enhancements. This is where the alignment, comes into play. And we'll talk about the skills gap and see where the skills gap occurs at all levels of education, and what we can do to fill that gap. Just a few more slides on this analysis. I want to give you an example of the type of data you'll be getting part of this project. So I'll first say that we're looking at the Triad region, but we're also going to be looking at individual metros and some of the larger counties, and really providing a lot of detail at the local level to help you understand what's happening and what your workforce looks like. We'll be looking at things like, employment growth and unemployment rates, population, these labor force participation rates, educational attainment, wage levels, graduation rates, poverty levels, education scores, and breaking some of these data down by race, by gender, and by, even veteran status, to give us a real flavor and nuance of what's happening in the workforce. We'll be examining your industry composition to see where jobs and where your economy is going. So first we'll identify the existing industry clusters that are creating jobs, and look at emerging clusters. You'll see on the right that this is just a sample graphic. It's not your region, but this is a bubble chart. We think it provides a quick and very easy snapshot of where the jobs are in your community, and where they're growing, and where your strengths are. I won't explain this too closely, but like I said, we'll be providing a lot of data on the dynamics of your industry, but also, which occupation clusters are in demand. We're going to look at your labor shed. So we'll be looking at the larger region, but also look at commuting patterns that showcase where people are commuting from and where you draw a workforce. I think labor sheds are really important to the economic development community to understand where the size of your labor force, and where you can expect to draw workers to serve the needs of current and future employers. We'll be providing some rather detailed data, so detailed you can't even see it on this slide, but really a lot of data on the occupational composition of your workforce, how many people are employed, what the current wage levels are, how those wage levels exceed or are below the U.S. average, and what the trend lines are. This is data that we think can be provided to students to show them what the long-term demand is for some of these careers, but also provided to employers to help them understand just how many workers are available with certain skills, and what the current wage levels are. Phase two, this is where we start talking about, does the supply meet the demand? And by supply, we're really looking at the output of graduates out of high schools, colleges, certificate programs, really every level of education. So we go and we pull data on all of the education institutions in the region. We summarize it, aggregate it into degree clusters, and then start answering the questions, are students pursuing the right degrees to meet the demand that we just examined in the previous phase? And how well is this alignment? How closely are you aligned, or are there big gaps in certain occupations and careers? I'll say too that we're going to be interviewing employers to gauge, how well this data matches with their observations and their experiences. We accept any level of information. We've even gotten, job forecasts from employers at times to tell us exactly who they're trying to hire and where the concerns are. So we look forward to that input from employers across numerous industries. As I mentioned before, we'll then look at some of these global forces and ask ourselves, what are the skills and, what are going to be impacting demand for skills, technology, automation, the evolution of the economy, and start to explore scenarios that might impact how we prepare for this and how we, train and educate students and workers to be ready for these changes. Finally, we'll land on an infographic that looks a lot like this, where we identify how many students are coming out of programs to meet the needs of job openings. We put it on a green, yellow, red scale so that you can see if you are oversupplied, undersupplied, or in balance. And these infographics are fantastic and really take a lot of the detail that exists in the degree programs and the occupational data and rolls it up into smaller groups that are easier to align and understand and certainly communicate with all of the stakeholders in the region. Sarah, let me let you talk about phase three, please.
Yeah, great, thanks. So as you can see through the first two phases of this, we're really kind of setting the baseline information for what's been happening in your community in terms of the supply and where we're anticipating the economy to grow over time in terms of that demand. Once we get into this alignment strategy component of it, we like to think about this within your entire education and workforce system. And all the pieces within that, and how do they work together, how do they evolve over time, how are they setting themselves up to really be aligned and to work well together, so that we're meeting not just demand that you have right now, but we're also preparing to meet that demand over time and can be as nimble as possible to meet those evolving needs, as Chris had described at the onset of the presentation, with all of these technology advancements and things like that. We at no point are we ever done with workforce development. The industry needs and skill needs are constantly evolving, and we need to have a system that's responsive to those needs. So what we will begin to look at, or what we will look at through this portion of the project, is really the who, the what, and the how. So it's not just, where are your students making decisions in terms of what they're pursuing for credentials and degrees, but who are the players in this space writ large. So that's looking at all of your educational institutions, both from the K through 12 system and the CTE programming that they offer, but also on the higher ed side, your workforce training providers, anybody that's set up on the eligible training provider list, folks that are offering apprenticeship programs, any other commercial training that's available, really everybody within this education system. Who are the players and what are they offering related to these target industries that will be revealed through earlier phases of the project. And then we really do want to further look at that alignment. So we want to be able to build off of looking at the, kind of surplus or balance or deficiency that you may have in terms of the supply. But let's look at the availability of that programming. What are they offering? How are they validating that skill? Meaning, what is the credential that they're offered? What is the general output of those programs as related to the analysis that we have in phase 2? But then furthermore, we want to look at the qualitative component of those systems. What is their outreach mechanism, not just to potential students, but to the community writ large about the opportunities that they have, and also in their relationships with the business and industry, which are very critical. Are there specific support systems that they have in place to ensure that once students enroll, that they can be successful and persist and graduate? What are the various delivery mechanisms? In many cases, what we'll hear from communities is that students have degrees, but they're not work ready. So what are the work experiential components within these training programs that you have, and opportunities that have been developed and could be furthered through a larger, coordinated strategy? I clicked on the arrow, Chris, but I don't think it moved. There we go. Thank you. So what we'll do in terms of really understanding the who within your system is provide you with a very comprehensive inventory of all the programs across these providers as they relate to the target industries that you have. So this is just one kind of version of this chart. And an example of the data that you'll get, and this is at the high level. We also ping deeply into each of these industry sectors so that you have a sense of not just programs that support an industry writ large, but we try to break that down across various competencies so that we have an understanding about what we even offer across the community. So it really gives you a fantastic 50,000-foot perspective on what we offer across the entire triad. I think these are really powerful sets of data to use, not just for the sake of the educators, but also to better that relationship that they have with industry. So as opposed to saying, what are the skill gaps that you have? Tell us what you need, and we'll build something that meets that. We can now, reverse the conversation and say, here's what we're offering. What are we still missing, or what within this program is still not meeting, your requirements that you have of these occupations, or what you would expect to see of someone coming out with this type of educational background. So really, what this does is help you to support, future movement to meet those target needs over time. If you can flip to the next slide, Chris. So once we have all of this information, all of the inventory piece of this, we do want to color this with very comprehensive qualitative input from these providers themselves. So as Chris had mentioned, that there's going to be a stakeholder input process for the demand side. Kale will be involved in that process as well to really get an understanding of how they're working with their education counterparts. But then we also want to have similar conversations with the education and the workforce system, really just to get some color around how is everything functioning or not going so well in terms of, industry engagement and partnership. Development of these work-based learning partnerships and opportunities. How are their programs being validated? What is the process for determining, programs going offline or coming online? What is the larger career awareness component of the system writ large? How are we making sure that people that live in our community know about these employment opportunities, and furthermore know that the education and training is also offered in this community? So we like to look at that through the lens of how they're offering that service, because in many cases, that's something that happens inside of advisory groups, and we just want to be able to get a greater understanding of how those relationships and that cross collaboration is currently going. Further within that, we really do want to look at also the support that is provided to the student once they have enrolled in these programs, and what is the opportunity that they have to be successful if they are working learners, if they're currently employed, and all of those various pieces. Great, thank you. So then all of this information then leads us to the larger strategy and set of recommendations. So the way that we look at this process is through 4 different buckets. So we really want to look at what is the content, modifications that might need to be made to better support, supply to the demand that you have currently and over time. So we'll look at the content of the programming and really help to make some recommendations that align all of that to industry needs that we've been able to reveal through the earlier phases of the project. But we also want to look at collaboration, not just among the partners, but across the partners and across sets of stakeholders. As Stan had mentioned earlier, there's a number of different organizations that are supporting workforce development because this is a need that we very much have right now and will continue to have. So we really want to look at the cross collaboration within this system so that we really are reinforcing each other's missions and objectives, but it's all for the greater good of making sure that we're producing talent that's aligned to the needs of the businesses that we have and that we hope to get over time. If you could switch to the next slide, Chris. Communication is another key component of this, and by communication we don't just mean how are we actually communicating across the stakeholders, but how are we communicating the opportunities to our residents, to the people that live in our community, and that'll be reinforced through the talent retention and attraction strategy, but really just making sure that folks know about the opportunities that are available to them. Certainly, we want to really critically understand how the system's been functioning in situations where there's been a dislocation or there's been a loss of a certain pillar industry or pillar business that you have, and how are we redeploying those folks, and what's the communication mechanism to them so that they understand the skills that they have and how that may transfer into other growth opportunities that you have in your community. And then finally, capacity is very much something that we focus on critically, as I know that that's a concern of all of yours all the time. There's only so many hours in the day and so many people that work for us. So how can we help to enhance the capacity across this entire system, and really looking at ways to bring efficiency to processes and other functions that you have across this larger workforce and education ecosystem. So at the end of this, we do really want to focus on a comprehensive strategy that addresses all 4 of these components and really sets you up with some actionable steps to take to increase your output on all of these pieces.
Great. Thank you, Sarah.
Back to you, Chris.
All right. Great overview of where the plan's going to take us. A part of the plan is to create a talent recruitment and retention strategy. This is where we start talking about quality of life and the marketing tools that you use around talent. We've helped develop talent marketing programs for other communities. One example is Houston. If you want to see it, you can go to a website. I think it's thecitywithnolimits.com. And this is where, we can get creative. It's going to be a part of the project that is led not by me, but by Noel Salerno, one of our senior consultants. And, it's going to be a conversation we'll have throughout the project. But we will be providing recommendations that can be implemented across the community, and we hope can be embraced by everyone collectively, so that you get that collective support around these branding ideas and the imagery that we'll be recommending to you. Now, given that we are close to 45 minutes past the hour, I'm going to finish the presentation, then we'll open it up for Q&A. And again, you are welcome to type a question in the chat box, or you can certainly email us any comments as well. I'll have email addresses for you at the end. But how can you get involved? So we are doing a kickoff luncheon in a few weeks from 12 to 1:30 p.m. Cecilia and Penny are the ones to contact about this. We're going to be talking about these issues in more detail and letting participants work in small groups to, develop some priority, issues and help us understand some of the dynamics that are, that you see on the ground. You can participate in an interview or a focus group. You can certainly suggest an employer to be invited to a focus group, and this is an area where we're going to lean on the local economic developers to help us identify employers that are important to your county and also would be willing to get involved. We are also, we have a long list of people we've invited to this event today, this webinar, but if we've overlooked anybody or if you know of someone that really needs to be involved, please give us their name or give us a list of organizations that you see being very critical to this process. And finally, please share any reports or studies or initiatives that are currently underway. I can see here a comment from Jesse that the Piedmont Triad Regional Council is undergoing a comprehensive economic strategy for the region, so that is great to see. There certainly is a lot of overlap between this project and the economic strategy work you're doing. So we want to make sure that we have those connections in place, that we can help each other and reinforce each other's work. Finally, here are some links. I think the important ones are below the email addresses. You're free to email me. You're free to email Sarah. Here are the emails for Cecilia and Penny. They're the ones to contact if you want to get involved in some of the local activities in the coming months. But again, we're very much wanting this process to be inclusive and participatory. So please do stay involved, and please do contact us and let us know how you want to participate. So with that, I'll say the presentation is done. You're free to jump off the call. I will stay for another 5 or 10 minutes and answer questions. I will also turn on all of the audio for people so you can speak up. If anybody's got a question, feel free to jump in.
Chris, this is Jake with Lincoln. When do you think, from a projected timeline, you'll finish phase 1?
This process is really designed to take about 6 to 8 months. So we're going to need a couple months to finish the workforce snapshot. So you'll be seeing data from us, in September. And a question about the webinar. We have recorded it, so we will save it and provide a link to everybody. I also see a comment here in the chat box. What is the definition of the region? The region we're following is the Piedmont Triad region. That is, I can let Penny talk about that, but again, we're thinking a very broad region, and are going to be looking at not only the region but metros and some of the major counties within. Other questions? People are still on.
And this is Sarah with Kale. I just wanted to make sure between Penny, Cecilia, and Stan, if there was anything else that you wanted to add. We certainly welcome any other thoughts. Yeah.
Hi, this is Cecilia Thompson. I've gotten a couple texts throughout the call with other additional names that we would, they'd encourage us to add to our list. We have a growing list of local constituents that we would love to engage. And so if you've noticed on the chat feature or the feature of the WebEx that someone's not on the call, they may already be on our list, but just in case, we'd love for you to send us an email and just let us know that person. We certainly don't want to miss anyone through this process.
Hi, this is Penny Whitehart. I just wanted to say regarding the region, we are going to be flexible about that, but the PTP and the Piedmont Triad Regional Council have sort of the same 12 counties, and those are the ones that are sort of the background of what we're doing. And if that doesn't answer your question, I'd say send Penny an email and we can talk about it.
Thank you, Penny. So if there aren't any more questions, I just want to say thank you again for being a part of this webinar. Thank you for your interest, and please do stay involved. We look forward to visiting with you in person, and certainly send any final thoughts or questions or suggestions to us by email. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.